Today on Fresno State Focus, we break down the election results for you, starting with the governor's race.
The latest numbers show Congressman Nunes won one of the nastier congressional races in the nation. Political science professor Thomas Holyoke analyzes the outcome.
Plus, the city of Fresno has one of the lowest
cleaner,
sales tax
safer,
rates in the
healthier
state,
parks
but that did
and
not
neighborhood
help Measure
parks
P.
that everyone
What's
can
next
enjoy.
for our parks?
I'm
Fresno
supporting
State
Measure
Focus
P,
starts
and
now.
so should you. Yes on P is good for kids.
Hello and welcome to our special election edition of Fresno State Focus. I'm Razmik Kanyas.
And I'm Deja Wright. The state of California has a new governor-elect, and he is once again a Democrat. Democratic Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom previously served as the mayor of San Francisco. He beat Republican candidate John Cox, who describes himself as a self-made millionaire with no political experience. Both men spent the weekend campaigning, with Cox swinging through Madera on a bus tour on Sunday. Newsom won with just over 59% of the vote.
Look, I don't think it's a gross exaggeration to say Trump's declared war on California. We're going to need all the foot soldiers we can get.
Newsom made the statement yesterday morning just after he cast his ballot in San Francisco, where he served 2 terms as mayor. Even though Newsom won the state, his Republican opponent John Cox had 58% of the vote in Fresno County.
Today on 7 Things You Need to Know. We look at some of the state propositions. 4 of these propositions deal with housing. Prop 1, affordable housing. Prop 2, housing for the mentally ill. Prop 5, transferring property tax away from schools to help property owners save money. And Prop 10, rent control for housing. Prop 1, which asks whether the state should sell $4 billion in bonds to provide affordable housing for veterans and other low-income people. Prop 1 passed. Prop 2, which would provide housing for mentally ill homeless people, also passed. Proposition 5 failed. It was designed to allow homeowners over the age of 55 to transfer their low property tax assessment when they buy another home, even if they buy a more expensive home. That includes severely disabled and the people who lost their home in a disaster. The problem is the schools and social services could lose property tax revenue. That will not happen now, as Prop 5 failed. Prop 10 would have allowed rent control in cities that restricted, but it too failed.
The next 3 cover state infrastructure, water, roads, and timing our lives. Proposition 3 asked voters whether they wanted the state to sell almost $9 billion in bonds for water-related projects. Voters said no. Prop 6 was created to take away recently passed legislation funding road repairs. That initiative failed. And Proposition 7 would allow states to change the time to all daylight saving time or all standard time. That one passed. Arizona and Hawaii are the only 2 states right now that are on standard time. They do not change their clocks twice a year like we do. The legislature still needs a 2/3 vote to make this a reality.
Prop 8, the dialysis initiative, failed with voters saying no to regulating the amount of dialysis clinics could charge patients.
Proposition 4 asked voters whether California should sell $1.5 billion in bonds to build and refurbish children's hospitals. Voters said yes to that initiative.
12 was one of the more controversial propositions. It passed with 60% of voters saying yes. It will tell farmers how much space they are allowed to confine their livestock and poultry in. The initiative states that key players in food production, egg-laying hens, pigs, and cows, like the ones shown here, gradually transition to cage-free facilities by the year 2020. Proposition 12 passed with a vote of 61%. Poultry science professor Katie Tarrant tells us how the initiative will impact egg producers and consumers.
Egg quantity and quality are not going to be the same as in a normal production standard. So effectively what you're looking at when you move to a cage-free system is going to be increased costs for the producer in order to retrofit their current systems in order to meet the new standards, as well as a likely decrease in egg production.
Only time will tell how going cage-free will affect these major players in the ag industry.
Measure P for Fresno Parks proposed a 3/8 of 1% sales tax increase to build and improve parks. Voters said no to Measure P. Fresno's sales tax is just under 8% right now. Measure P would have increased the tax by just over 1/3 of 1%, which would bump Fresno's sales tax to 8.35%. Fresno State political science professor Thomas Holyoke is here to talk with us right now and break down the midterm elections.
So let's start with Measure P. It was backed by former Mayor Ashley Swearingen, but it was not supported by current Mayor Lee Brand. How did that all work out?
Well, what seems to have happened here is essentially the original Parks Master Plan developed during the Swearingen administration really set some ambitious targets for developing park space in the city. Fresno actually is virtually a park desert. We don't have nearly the park space that most other cities of our size have. Once she was out of the mayor's office, Swearingen really started putting together a campaign to increase the sales tax by 3/8 of a cent. However, the current mayor, Lee Brand, really wanted to prioritize public safety, and he wanted a tax measure on public safety, and the two sides couldn't agree. It became a political battle, and in the end, there was not enough compelling reason to convince voters to open their wallets.
Well, how do you think citizens in Fresno will respond to this? Have you heard anything so far, or?
Well, to some extent, the citizens of Fresno are probably comfortable with the outcome, since it seems now maybe a majority of those who voted against Measure P. They simply did not want any increase in the sales tax. Now, in terms of recreation, we do have a problem in the city. There are just not enough places for people and their children to go.
And talking about those previous propositions we mentioned, how are we going to see that being affected with our taxes?
Well, I mean, with the failure of Measure P, there won't be any kind of immediate change to to the sales tax that we pay. Now, it may be that Mayor Brand in the future tries to bring forth another sales tax measure for public safety, or he may even try to do public safety and parks, since he had proposed something like that last year, but proponents of Measure P did not want to back that compromise.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to be coming back with Dr. Holyoke in just a little bit to talk about Congress.
Dr. Okay. The nationwide effort band of voters came to Fresno State to help get out the vote. They call themselves the Voter Revolution and popped up on campuses around the country using the hashtag Party to the Polls. At Fresno State, DJ K-Rich led the effort.
Out here? I'm out here because obviously November 6th is a big and very, 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 very important day. You know, we want to get the youth involved in terms of election, in terms of having their voice heard. So I got the phone call from the NAACP and the GOTV, and they said, hey, we want you to come on out here, play some music, spread the word, because we want to party to the polls.
Fresno State student volunteers staffed tables and answered questions about the candidates and initiatives. A little later on in the show, we'll hear from students about whether they voted in this year's election and why.
One of the more contentious congressional races was here in the Central Valley. Incumbent Republican Congressman Devin Nunes went head-to-head with Democrat challenger and political newcomer Andrew Jans. Nunes won with 55.8% of the vote.
Chelsea, you spent some time there last night, so give us a little rundown about how it went.
I did, and it was an energetic night as soon as the polls closed at 8. My classmate Scott Grunwald and I were there to get a feel of the historic night.
Last night, energetic spirit filled the room as votes for Devin Nunes came rolling in.
It's a difficult night to watch, knowing that the issues that have been challenges for the Central Valley for 25, 30 years are finally at the forefront, and something may change tonight.
Although this election has been one of Nunes' more intense elections, his voters didn't seem too worried about it because they didn't consider his challenger much of a challenge.
This was all ACLU, George Soros, Bay Area money that came into the Central Valley to try to buy the election. And I think the voters, at least in the Central Valley, are smarter than that. And you saw that tonight with David Valadao and with Devin Nunes.
Nunes did not talk with any media last night.
On the other side of town, Nunes challenger Deputy District Attorney Andrew Jans realized early in the evening, despite his backing from other parts of the state, he did not have the backing in his own district. Clayton Jones and Brittany Steele had that part of the story from the Jans campaign party at the Falls in Fig Garden Loop.
Morale was at an all-time high at the Jans camp as Andrew Jans entered the Falls Event Center. The vibe was only positive as the anticipation for the first count built. Although midway through the event, I had caught an uninvited guest, Ben Berkwam, who our own Chelsea Chavera had interviewed earlier at the Nunes camp, stirring up some controversy as he was seen wearing a Donald Trump hat filming supporters of Jans. Ben ended up being escorted out by security. As the first count came rolling in, Nunes was ahead with 56% of the vote. Campaign manager Heather Grevin kept a positive outlook.
You guys can look into the room. Everyone here has put everything on the line for the last 19 months. This is a candidate they believe in. We ran on the issues. We ran a positive campaign. Devin Nunes refused to debate Andrew Jans. So everyone in here is happy to back a candidate that has integrity.
Nunes has held the district since 2013. Today, Jans is back in court as Deputy District Attorney, the job he was held while campaigning for Congress. Because Republicans are no longer the majority in the House, Nunes loses his role as the chair of the House Intelligence Committee. In the Valley, it was a great race for incumbents, and it didn't matter the political party, except for Senator Andy Vidak, who lost his Republican seat. Democrat incumbent Jim Costa keeps his seat, which he has held since 2013. His opponent, Elizabeth Heng, was a newcomer to politics and worked in Washington, D.C. as a staff member for the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Over $5 billion was spent in this midterm election, making it the most expensive midterm election in campaign history. Did all of the money change the power of Congress?
Scott Grunwald is here to show us how those races changed history. Scott.
Thanks, Resmeek and Deja. Well, out of 435 House races, only 23 seats were needed to flip the House from Republican-controlled to Democrat-controlled. And with this midterm election, that indeed happened. The Democrats were able to gain 27 seats in the House of Representatives. Apart from being the most expensive midterm, this election made history in other ways. More women were elected to Congress than any other election before, bringing the total to more than 100 in the House alone. Self-described Democratic socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the youngest woman to ever be elected at age 29. The Senate not only stayed in control of the Republicans, but it also gained traction by picking up 2 more Senate seats. There's already talk of a bipartisan deal on infrastructure.
Women led the way to victory, with at least 30 new women coming to the Congress. Is that not exciting?
The one issue that Leader Pelosi and I discussed this morning is where there could be a possible bipartisan agreement would be something on infrastructure. Look, there'll be a lot of other things.
Congress certainly will have a new look come January, but the president promised today to work with both sides to get things done. He does not want a lame duck Congress. Back to you, Resmeek and Deja.
We're here back with political science professor Dr. Thomas Holyoke, and we're going to be talking about Congress now.
What was your reaction to this congressional race? Were there any surprises to you at all?
On the Nunes-Jans race? I was a little surprised that Nunes' margin of victory was as large as it was. I didn't think Jans was going to be able to take down Nunes, but I thought he might get a little closer. Jans pretty much did everything right. It's just that the Republicans really controlled that district. There's a large well of support there for President Trump. So just on those qualities alone, I didn't think Jans would be able to take it.
And looking at Congress as a whole, there's a large number of women that are coming in. What are your thoughts on that now?
Well, it's transformative, and that takes us into an area where it makes it a little hard to predict, since in the past Congress, until just a few decades ago, had virtually no women in it at all. Will this create different kinds of issues, different kinds of priorities, more of a bipartisan atmosphere? I don't know. Maybe women are going to be just as partisan and nasty as men have been.
And what are your thoughts about Jeff Sessions resigning right after?
Well, so we knew this was coming. I don't think anyone expected it to come so immediately and so abruptly. Clearly, President Trump has been very frustrated with the Attorney General, especially over the Mueller probe into the 2016 election. Now Sessions is gone. That might mean that Trump is looking at really trying to undermine or entirely shut down the Mueller probe. But then again, Democrats in the House will use that as ammunition against him. So that's a perilous road for the president to go down.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Holyoke, for joining us and giving us all that insight.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Earlier today, we got word that Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigned right after the president said in a news conference that making two hot topics that may have had an impact on voters is the immigrant caravan and the economy. We're now going to send it off to Cruz to give us a little more information on that.
How you guys doing? So thank you, Razmeek and Deja. So first things first, let me update you guys on the caravan. Now the caravan is, first of all, it started in Honduras, and now it's leading all the way to Mexico City. We have about over 5,000 in the caravan. Conservative leaders use this as a way to seal the deal, showing why they would enforce strict border controls if elected into office.
If you want more caravans and more crime, vote Democrat. If you want strong borders and safe communities, vote Republican.
No, Democrats won the House, so it is unclear right how the president proposed wall will be built. Now, the other big topic fueling the election is the nation's economy. Unemployment is down and the stock market is way up. The Dow Jones skyrocketed today and closed up at 545 points. The tech-heavy NASDAQ closed up 2.6%. Historic midterm election? You bet. Back to you, Razmeek and Deja.
Coming up on Fresno State Focus, how will the results from this big election affect us here at Fresno State? Larry Salinas, Executive Director of Governmental Relations, gives us that perspective.
Plus, we take a look at how the generosity of Day of Giving will help this university and specifically our College of Arts and Humanities. All that when we come back.
Success. At Fresno State, it's no secret. It's discovering new ways to change our world. It's creating opportunities as diverse as our community itself. It's in the distinction of our graduates as they lead us into the future. Success is no secret at Fresno State. It's our mission.
This is our Fresno State, forming relationships and learning experiences that last a lifetime, making friends who are like family, learning from professors who treat us like family, and earning a degree to make a better future for our family. Engaging our alumni generation by generation by generation. This is our Fresno State. Welcome to the family.
When Fresno State puts its collective mind to something, it is a powerful thing. This year's Day of Giving is proof of that. For the second annual one-day fundraiser, over $455,000 was raised, and it's all in just one day. That's 7% more than last year. 2,100 people from 42 states donated to our university, even people from 18 different countries. Donors were able to designate where they wanted their money to go, and the college bringing in the most, our College of Arts and Humanities. That means our college got a $2,000 bonus donation for being the top earner.
Many of the races and propositions have a direct impact on Fresno State.
So we are here with a longtime political advisor here in the Central Valley, Mr. Larry Salinas. And can you tell us a little bit about the impact the Day of Giving is going to be having on Fresno State students?
Well, I think the impact is going to be tremendous. We had record response from over 2,000 individual donors. We went over and raised more than $455,000. And I think when you look at virtually every corner of this campus, there will be an impact, a positive impact for students, from scholarships to athletics, to giving for other scholarships for each of the colleges as well. So I think they're going to have a tremendous benefit to our students.
And Governor Jerry Brown was, a friend of education. Do you think that the next governor will follow in his footsteps with the same kind of ideas and thoughts?
Well, we're hopeful with Governor Newsom, Governor-elect Newsom, that he will be. One thing that he has in his favor is that the state is in a very good financial situation, thanks to Governor Brown. and his fiscal responsibility over his 8 years. And so, but with that comes a lot of folks coming to ask for funds from all corners of the state. So the governor-elect is going to have his hands, people are going to have their hands out, and he's going to have his work cut out for him in that regard. So I think that financial picture for the state and the fact that the governor-elect has, as a trustee of the CSU board, has given strong indication of student support along the way. And what we're trying to do in addition to that, President Castro has had the opportunity to meet with Governor-elect Newsom during the election cycle to talk about a higher education facilities bond, which we have not had for 12 years now.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for giving us that insight. Larry Salinas is the Executive Director of Governmental Relations here at Fresno State.
You see people posting "I voted" stickers on social media every election day, but some people in New York State use theirs to honor Susan B. Anthony. After casting their ballots, voters placed "I voted" stickers on Susan B. Anthony's gravestone in upstate New York. 146 years ago today, she was charged and fined for voting in the presidential election. Women were not allowed to vote. It took nearly a half a century for efforts of the suffrage movement to finally lead to the passage of the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. And on her tombstone, people were letting her know she done good.
And today, people have mixed emotions about the midterm election. Cedric Hood is live at the free speech area at Fresno State to get some student reactions to the outcome. What's up over there, Cedric?
That's right, Deja. The election is the most talked about thing today. We've seen the billboards. We've seen the ads and things like that. Today, I'm just trying to get students' reaction on what's going on. Hey, sir, do you have a moment to talk to me really quick? Okay, I have a quick question. What's your name?
My name's Aaron.
Aaron, nice to meet you. What do you think about the election overall? Like, how do you think the outcome was?
I voted Democrat, so I'm generally happy with the outcome. We took the House. We didn't do as well as the governor races as I would have liked, but at least there is some kind of check on the executive now. So
absolutely. And what direction would you like to see our leaders take the government now that they have it in their hands?
I would like to see more bipartisanship. I would like to see things just get better, and I'd like to see them work together more, maybe on healthcare infrastructure or something.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, okay? And now the government's going to focus on, the people are going to focus on the 2020 election coming up in a couple years and see how that's going to go. And I'm Cedric Hood, standing in the free speech area at Fresno State for Fresno State Focus.
Well, thank you so much, Cedric. Coming up in sports, Bulldog football is on a tear. We'll talk about this team's record wins and where the team is today in the polls. Hint, much higher than last time.
Plus, basketball season begins. We take you to the men's opener and look ahead at games to come. Stay tuned for a focus on sports with Julia.
I got the bulldog spirit up in my head.
Up in my head.
Up in my head.
I got that bulldog spirit. Up in my head. Up in my head to say. I got that bulldog spirit. Deep in my heart. Deep in my heart. Deep in my heart. Got that bulldog spirit. Deep in my heart. Deep in my heart to stay. I got that bulldog spirit. Down in my toes. Down in my toes. Down in my toes. I got that bulldog spirit. Down in my toes. Hey. Down in my toes to stay. I got that bulldog spirit. Up in my head. Deep in my heart. Down in my toes. I got that bulldog spirit. All over me. All over me to stay. I got that bulldog spirit.
Deep in my heart.
Deep in my heart. Deep in my heart. I got that bulldog spirit.
Welcome back. I'm Julia Vella with your sports report. The Fresno State football team earned its 7th straight win as it dominated UNLV on Saturday. It was all dogs this weekend as 6 different players scored each of the touchdowns. There were 4 rushing and 2 passing. This was the 3rd game of the season where the Dogs allowed no touchdowns. It was also Coach Tedford's 100th career win. The Dogs are ranked 23rd in the college football playoff rankings. They are the only Mountain West team in the top 25. The team is headed to Boise this Friday to battle for the Milk Can Trophy. If they bring home a victory this weekend, it will be the first time winning on blue turf since 1984. You can catch their game at 7:15 on ESPN2. Basketball season is finally upon us. After winning exhibition games over the weekend, the men's and women's teams opened the season yesterday. The men's team earned a victory over Alaska Anchorage at home last night. The Dogs did a great job finding each other on the court and were ahead from the start. They ended the game with a score of 91-63. It was a big night for new head coach Justin Hudson as he brought in a win in his Division I debut. The women's team dropped the season opener in an 86-73 loss to Northern Arizona. They will be back in the Save Mart Center for their home opener against Cal Poly on November 14th. The men's team will face TCU on the road November 15th. The Fresno State equestrian team has its first home meet this weekend, facing South Carolina on Friday and Baylor on Saturday. Here to talk with us now is junior team captain Paige Barton. Hi, Paige.
Hi.
So earlier this season, we talked about the freshmen on the team. How are they getting acclimated to life as a student athlete and being on the equestrian team at Fresno State?
I mean, they definitely, it's definitely a struggle coming in and being thrown into college classes and team practices and away meets and home meets and all that, and they're doing really, really well. We had a lot of freshmen travel to our first away meet this season to Baylor, and they did amazing. They came out, they rode, they were strong, they didn't let it get to them, and I mean, going to Baylor as our first away meet is a really hard thing to do, and they did amazing.
That's really awesome to hear. I'm glad they're getting acclimated. So what can you tell me a little bit about your guys' time on the road so far, and are you excited to be home this weekend? I believe it's your first home meet.
It is, yeah. I'm very excited to be home. It's been a very rough couple away meets so far. We went against UTM Delaware. We beat UTM. That was awesome. Lost to Baylor, lost to Delaware. And then we went to Texas A&M and SMU, and those are the second and third teams in the nation. It's been hard, but I'm very, very ready to be at home and show them what we've got and get some wins.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And you guys face Baylor again this weekend, so
Yes,
let's hope
we
you
do.
bring home that win. Awesome. Well, thank you
Definitely.
so much for being here, Paige.
Thank you so much.
We've been talking with junior team captain Paige Barton from the equestrian team. Good luck this weekend. And that's your focus on sports. Now back to Razmeek and Deja.
Now for What's the Tea, we're joined by Chelsea and Scott. Obviously, the big topic today for many students is whether they voted. Even though students couldn't cast their vote on campus this year, there was still plenty of buzz. Katie Altenhoffel went out on campus to find out who voted and who didn't.
For the past 2 weeks, a band of voters has made a big appearance on campus. Volunteers displayed informational material to help students understand the initiatives and candidates and get out to vote. Most of the students we talked to say they did vote.
What's going on Twitter and whatever, all the controversy that's happening and all the opinions that are being voiced by the students, by our generation, it's definitely important for those voices to be put into action.
I'm really uninformed about everything going on, so I figure an uninformed vote's worse than no vote.
I think it's important for the student population to vote because we all have a say, and if you think you want things to change or you want different things to happen, then you have to go out there and put your opinion out there for people to know and hear.
I think it's important for students to vote because they're the next generations, and they make decisions that impact ourselves in the future.
A band of voters held noontime rallies yesterday and last week, handing out information along with pizza, chips, and bottled water. Katie Altenhoffel, Fresno State Focus.
So what do you guys think about that story? Is that the reaction you guys were expecting to hear from students?
I would say so. More and more, especially in my circles, everyone seems more and more wanting to vote and get out there and get their voice heard.
Yes, I agree. I feel like people our age and college students are starting to be more involved with voting, which I think is a great thing.
Yes. Thank you. We'll see you next week for Fresno State Focus.